Greetings, survivors and friends, SHADOWFRAX here with all the biggest stories from this week in Rust development, including wallpaper, digital clocks and blowpipes. But first, the kind of first look at the New World update with a big disclaimer. This is still being worked on a separate internal branch with a release date of October, hopefully, and is therefore mightily subject to change. And I've fudged things a bit, as this is Orcs 02 map data being viewed on a main staging client, so isn't indicative of how it looks currently or how it will look. I'm not even sure why I'm showing you this, but even so, it's interesting, isn't it? As you can see here from the map, there are 3 basic new features which I mentioned briefly last week, and for reference, this is a 4,300 sized map. And the main new points of interest coming seem to be lakes, canyons, and oases. So, first, this is one of the lakes, and there appear to be a couple of these in the temperate biome of this map. As you can see, it seems to be quite steep-sided and deep, if I turn the water off, although as you can see, this is a bit messed up, so don't take any of this as gospel. Next, a couple of what I assume may be canyons. The ground textures are different here, but please remember, something that isn't being generated as I'm on the wrong branch are rocks and cliffs that may well play a big part in what we should be seeing, especially in canyons, so this isn't really a good example of what to expect. I do like the details on the ground though, that make the terrain look more realistic when it comes to things like water erosion, and I'm noticing stuff like this all over the map. Then, over in the desert, naturally, we have what seem to be oases, although these are currently dry, but you get the idea, and I don't know for sure, but hopefully these, or at least the lakes, will have fishy fish in them and be drinkable. Then lastly, and most intriguingly if you ask me, it looks like the new Radtown Redux has generated on this map, and even though it's only a footprint, because the actual monument doesn't exist on this branch yet, we can get a glimpse of what has spawned in the way of assets that do. For instance, it seems there will be a recycler near one side of the monument, along with a hobo barrel, and I count 3 CCTV cameras here, here, and here. Apart from that, all that's apparent is the basic layout of buildings with a few doors and furniture. It also seems to have spawned very close to the harbour on this map, and you can get an idea of its size in comparison. As I say though, please don't take this too seriously, which is a futile thing to say to the average Rust player I know, but this is all very early and, as I say, fudged, so expect it to look a lot different when it hits Rust in October, and I'll bring you anything new I get on it in the meantime. Something to note from the commits is that there is going to be some new radioactive water added to the new Radtown. Drinkable, of course, because as we all know, that's incredibly good for you, but that also, if this water merges with other water in containers, it will contaminate it. Plants watered with it will die, and players splashed with it will be irradiated. Are you thinking of a potential new trap? I mean, a lovely, fizzy, refreshing shower? In other stuff being worked on, a new digital clock is available on the staging branch. This is a workbench level 2 item which costs 100 frags to craft. It shows the current server time when powered on, and has an alarm function that lets you pass through power when it's triggered. The alarm will also beep, but this can be muted, and up to 5 alarms per clock can be saved and turned on and off as desired. What would you do with this? Do you think it's particularly useful for anything? Let me know below. The other big thing just added to staging is Wallpaper, which is the default blueprint at the moment and costs 20 cloth per panel. It currently comes in 5 designs: blue, red, yellow, and 2 types of subway wall effect, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of other skins rolled out in the future. You can choose the skin when crafting, or indeed reskin them in a repair bench, and they can only be placed on soft sides of a wall, conforming of course to whichever type of block it is. Something to note though is that Wallpaper does take a few thwacks of a hatchet to destroy, a bit like wood chip really, but the damage does seem to go through it into the wall below, and it can be picked up with a hammer without losing any condition. What would be cool if you ask me would be if you could customize your own wallpaper by painting a pattern that could then be repeated across your walls. I don't imagine that would be too hard to implement, but what do I know? I'm sure players would be very responsible with it, of course. But what do you think? Let me know. In other stuff, Wolf AI is getting a lot of attention, and from the commits we can see that among the plans such as howling and coordinated attacks as mentioned last week, they'll also react to campfires and player torches, perhaps a new way to keep them at bay. They'll look at their prey whilst circling them, and their eyes will glow in the night. Nothing creepy about that whatsoever. Hack Week is mostly over now it seems, and if you want to see a rundown of what the team was working on, then please check out last week's video. As always, there's no guarantees about anything from a Hack Week actually making it into the game, but I think I can see box sorting and the colorblind settings making it. They are suitably boring enough to be considered, I think. One extra thing that resurfaced a couple of days ago though was an older Hack Week project regarding meals, i.e. Tier 2 cooking, which will probably get added in 2030 or something, but it's nice to see it still worked on in some capacity. The new Frontier Hazmat Hatchet and High Caliber Revolver combos being worked on still, which should be a DLC soon, and lastly, this week, a lot of commits are flying about a new weapon, the Blowpipe. What I can tell from this at the moment is that it'll fire bone darts, and that it will probably have some kind of poison effect, as it looks like it'll slow players and obscure their vision. It's nice to see an actual primitive weapon being worked on for once, and knowing Facepunch, they'll eventually make a military version at some point. Well, that's it for this week, and you are now up to date, but please leave a like and tell me your deepest thoughts down below. Feel free to join me elsewhere, such as Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, and my Steam group links are below. You can support this channel here with YouTube memberships and Patreon too. I shall catch you all soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio. A lovely, fizzy, refreshing shower?